Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today we are going to be discussing a couple plans or tactics to save PvP. And we are here with Jason from MVP Gaming. Jason, how are you?
Fantastic, TJ. Thanks so much for joining me again, or allowing me to join you this time. We did the podcast a couple times for MVP Gaming, and I'm really excited to talk about PvP and ESO.
Yeah. So if you don't know me, I I've played since beta, and I have leveled almost 300 characters in PvP, whether that be Battlegrounds or Imperial City, or Cyrodiil. And I've played every class, every possible way, from range to bow to healer to whatever. And I don't like healing, but found that out about myself. But every possible way, and melee, sword and board, dual wield, two hand, every possible way with different combinations and stuff. And uh, I don't have a main per se. I have classes that might be S tier right now because of hybridization or balancing, unbalance, whatever you want to call it, that are my go-tos. But for me, I'm not trying to get any particular class nerfed or any particular class buffed. Instead of using those two words, I would like to talk about just balance, because I think balance is the key word. I would like to see all classes performing on a similar level with within their class toolkits, similar capabilities, not abilities that look the same or function the same, but as far as damage potential, and things like that. Because when we have balance, we have very interesting fights, and that's what I'm looking for, is those fights that are just um, very fun to be in, and you go back and you look at it and you're like, man, that was awesome.
Oh
That right
yeah,
there
oh
was
yeah.
the pinnacle of PvP, not a you know ganked from stealth and hit with everything, the kitchen sink, and you're dead in a millisecond. um, and that's not an attack on Nightblades. I just think that there should be counterplay in all things, because counterplay leads to PvP development. If there's no counterplay, then that's not a healthy PvP environment.
So
So
let's talk a little bit about this balancing that you're desiring, or that you think would benefit PvP for ESO. Let's first talk about the 10,000 foot view, and then we'll go into some details and get in the weeds a little bit. But ESO in its current state in PvP is broken. Would you agree with that?
absolutely. Like there's sorcerers and Nightblades are S plus plus tier, and it's because they have nuclear capabilities at their disposal within their class toolkits. Or you can say that those classes are just built perfect. They're functioning as they should, and other classes, which means the other classes are not functioning, at S tier. So yes.
And I think in the balancing aspect, I agree with you that you're not trying to have or you're not suggesting. So if anybody flags this, a homogenization of classes where they're watered down and everybody has the same toolkit, and it's just kind of this running around doing whatever. The unique abilities of each class, and having some class having not necessarily nuclear capabilities, but S tier capabilities is fine. It's just that skill needs to be implemented more into a PvP environment, because in a player versus player environment, I think what draws people in or what pushes people away is this ability that you can follow a meta, is that you can equip a certain class with something, and then just dominate and have nothing stop you. That draws people away from PvP, versus if it's about skill, if it's about your ability to you know have a good sweaty fight with someone. That's fun, that's engaging, and people play video games to have fun.
Yeah, yeah. I guess as a disclaimer too, and maybe this should have been in my personal description. I enjoy PvE also, and I don't want to affect, with these proposed changes, I don't want to affect PvE at all, at all. There is maybe this outlier excuse or this outlier, but you are affecting PvE if you make those changes, because PvP will function differently than PvE. You know, they'll go
Right.
in expecting this amount of damage or this amount of mitigations, and they won't. And it's like, hold up, wait a minute. They're
There's a,
going into PvP. There's a battle spirit passive in place that throttles healing and throttles uh, damage output. When they go into a PvP environment from their PvE environment, they're already expecting, a change. So
And there are other
there's
games
that.
that have implemented, like World of Warcraft. I myself am more of a PvE player. I dabble in PvP, but I'm more of a PvE player. And World of Warcraft, which is where I've spent the majority of my time, we have War Mode, which turns a flag on the character, and there Blizzard is able to fine tune abilities within that flag without affecting the PvE environment. And so
Yeah.
they function totally separate based upon a debuff or an aura that is present on the character, and it allows for tweaking and fine tuning and creating a balanced environment. And they're totally separate at that point without having to write 2 lines of code or totally implement different things or the nerf word or function negatively in the PvE environment. So I love that solution that you have come up with.
Yeah. So let's rewind here to 4 years ago. Icy Fire Gaming and I started the Three Skeevers podcast. And through the course of, I don't know, 50 episodes or something like that, through the course of 50 episodes, we had a lot of large content creators on there. Kev Do It, Deltia's Gaming, bruh, we got this. Like, we had so many great, Is There No One Else? We had so many great PvP and just ESO content creators in general on. And I always got to pick their brain off the air and then on the air, but we always would talk about, hey, what do you think is needed to help or save PvP? And I always asked them what their thoughts were on utilizing the Battle Spirit passive to add caps to certain things. And so here's what Battle Spirit passive is as a whole. If you don't know this, and say you really enjoy PvE and you didn't know why your heals were less going into PvP, but Battle Spirit passive cuts basically all your healing and all your damage by 50%, and that allows for the possibility of counterplay, right, and engaged fights. Because if you've got a 70k tooltip on your bow ultimate and you go into PvP, your bow ult will still read 70k, but the player is only going to take half the damage of that. It's a player character. We need to give them an opportunity to survive
Oh
even the
yeah.
first 2 hits. And so, but dating back to even 4 years ago with the Three Skeevers podcast, we were discussing all of these things, and we proposed using the Battle Spirit passive. And so fast forward, I guess, to where we are today, and we have people that are walking around with 80% damage mitigation because those changes weren't made 4 years ago, right? Like, let's say a ZeniMax Online Studios or Bethesda employee heard the podcast and are like, light bulb, right? And they're like, this
Right.
is the answer, because our PvE community is 90% or 95 or 97% of our population. The PvP community is so small. And honestly, it's so small because it's been done a disservice. It is
Correct.
so small because when the PvE community dips their toes into PvP, they get blown up in a millisecond. I know this to be true. This is not fake news or me making this up at all. I have
Absolutely.
trained so many PvPers in the last 4 years, and it's one of the first things said. I die so fast, I don't even know what's happening, you know? And there's going to be somebody, I can hear it right now because I just had somebody post this in one of my comments, get good, or that's your own failings, don't nerf Nightblades because you suck or something like that,
But nobody's
and
talking about nerfing anything. It's
yeah,
creating balance and an opportunity. And I think it's beneficial even for those dissenters who are like, don't nurse my class, bro. Get good, bro. Like,
yeah,
even for them to enlarge the PvP community within ESO and to bring more people and to make it more appealing. Then
Yeah.
ZeniMax has to listen because it's not a 3 or a 5 or 10% of the population, it's a 30 or 40% of the population.
Yes, yes, because people are enjoying PvP, not getting blown up in a millisecond, or they're in these engaging fights. And another thing too is like my thing to that Nightblade, or my thing to that sorcerer, my thing to that person that, don't nerf my class or whatever. I I had one individual who I really respect the heck out of. They run a full Nightblade guild, and they're one of the most accomplished Nightblades in well respected Nightblades in ESO PCNA. And he posted on my community board comment yesterday, like, um he posted basically, here's why you got blown up, here's why. And I already know all that to be true, but my question is, why do Nightblades have an ability that has a 10k more damage tooltip than any other ability, and the way it functioned, and Nightblades get a guaranteed crit from stealth? I'm asking this as a why that is, right? Why is this? And their answer was, like basically, don't you dare get my class nerfed, or don't you dare touch my ability. There are people walking around in the game with 70, 80, 90% damage mitigation. And if anything, we need more damage to kill those. And that right there is why we need to use Battle Spirit passive. You would not need more nuclear capabilities to kill that guy if Battle Spirit was used to bring him down to earth. He should not have 70 to 80% damage mitigation.
No.
He shouldn't. And so there's a problem with the way the math is done. It's not multiplicative, it's additive, and they've recognized that, where
The
they're
code is
looking.
just spaghetti right now.
The code is spaghetti. They've said so themselves, right? And so, but here I think is what I'm getting at. You yourself are already nuking 90% of the ESO PvP community. You're already able to one shot them from stealth. Okay. And before your character even renders in, they die. You're already able to do that. You should not be granted more nuclear capabilities to also be able to kill the 70, 80, and 90% damage mitigation people that are walking
Which
around
is a
in.
response to the fact that they can nuke somebody from stealth in one shot.
Yeah, those people, the Battle Spirit passive should prevent them from having such high mitigations. And in that moment, we could probably afford to dial back your damage. That's when we actually see numbers start to come to a realistic thing.
And
We
if so,
don't give you more nukes. We just make it to where you don't need the more nukes to kill this person that is the outlier. They should not be walking around with 70, 80% damage mitigation, but they
100%,
are.
100%. By applying a balanced approach, and the cool thing with Battle Spirit is if you have diminishing returns, you set a cap and you apply diminishing returns where it's effectively worthless to add any more of that stat or of that technique because the diminishing returns make it not applicable. But if you had the Battle Spirit and you had an ability that was being abused because the numbers are spaghetti, you could go in and just fine tune that one ability, and it would only affect that one ability only in the PvP environment.
That right there. So let's take that snapshot and talk about that, deep dive on that. So let's say we have we're going to pick on a different class. I'm not trying to pick on Nightblades. It's just Nightblades have merciless. I have a 26k spec bow on my Nightblade, and after 5 light attacks or 2 heavy attacks, I can use it again. I can use that ability twice as fast as I can use my class ultimate. Okay. And I can get on a Nightblade a guaranteed crit with that, setting it up behind a Magnum shot or setting it up behind a Soul Tether. Okay. Um, but let's say another class: Necromancer, Blast Bones, whatever. I don't care. Any other class, a core major damage ability, or what's supposed to be a major damage ability. Let's say Blast Bones had a 50k tooltip. You could go in, we wouldn't change that tooltip in a PvE environment. So
Yeah,
all the PvEers would enjoy a 50k Blast Bones tooltip, but
100%.
when you enter PvP and you have the Battle Spirit passive present, now when you look at that ability, down at the bottom an asterisk was added that says this ability does 30% less damage due to the Battle Spirit passive. Whatever.
And then there are diminishing returns after a certain percentage or after a certain amount.
Yeah, there's a fine tuning ability of it, so to where it hits hard. It's still hitting players hard, but it's not, annihilating them. And so that just takes a little bit of balancing. But that's what I'm looking for. I do want that ability to hit really hard in PvP. I don't think that it should one shot everybody that it hits.
Just to kill the person with the 80 or 90%.
Yeah, just to kill the 80 or 90% mitigation person. No. Heck no. That person we need to adjust their 80 or 90% mitigation so that's not happening. But if that person that is used to 80 or 90% mitigations was ceiling, capped at 30% mitigations or whatever the mitigations,
It would
we
force
decide,
them to learn to play PvP. They
it would
couldn't
force
just
them to
go
learn to
in
play.
and then
Yes.
everybody's benefiting. And then all of a sudden you get these PvEers coming in and saying, PvP is fun. I can go in and survive, and I don't have to be a whiz and understand and know everything right off the bat.
Yeah.
There's a growth portion there where I can come in and actually sustain damage and sustain life and have
Yes.
fun and engage in the community.
Yes. Yeah. So on that note, most of the time when I'm working with a new PvPer, I will tell them, hey, low BBGs, like level 10 to level 50, is where you'll learn the most about PvP, where to be, where not to be, how to flank, how to stay with your team, your class abilities, and you're still unlocking abilities. You don't have the best armor, you don't have the best weapons, you don't have the best loadout. So damage as a whole is less, except for the people that are reconstructing the most problematic sets in the game and going into low BBGs and smurfing and destroying people. Shame on them. But,
Shame on them.
you know, they're outliers, right? But for the most part, in low BBGs, that's where you have the best opportunity to learn how to PvP. Almost everybody, I would say 99% of the people that I've trained over the years, now we'll say 95, because there's a lot of former military that can't wait to PvP,
Yeah.
right? But a lot of the people that I train, they say, hey, my hands get a little shaky, nerves, I'm fighting and whatever. And that's a thing too. But they need to get over that through just repetition and getting in and combat,
To respond to the person that says learn to play, give me an environment where I can learn to play. Why are you ganking? Why are you coming in here and smurfing?
that. So low BBGs, I always tell people, is one of the best places to learn to play. Also, no CP environments, like no CP Cyrodiil. Now, here's the caveat to that is because I can hear someone now. There's no population in no CP. Nobody wants to play no CP. Well, the problem is not everyone understands the value of no CP. No CP is perfect for new PvPers. Unfortunately, new PvPers are teaming up with people and asking to group because they're not PvPers, and they're grouping with people that are in CP PvP, and they get drug into CP PvP, and that's where they end up living. And then now their builds are put together around proc sets and CP and whatever, and they
Adds to the
don't
problem, and either they love
adds
it or
to
they
the
hate it. They're
problem.
either there and
Yes.
they're part of the problem, or they hate it and they walk away, and it just creates more problem because PvP stays niche.
Yes, yeah. So here's the thing. Before we continue to kind of talk about this Rubik's cube of a problem, right? We have so many voices talking, like disagreeing with one another in the PvP community. Everyone, I did a community post yesterday or the day before, just asking why. Why does Nightblade have an ability that has a 30 or 40k tooltip? I have that on my Nightblade. I destroy people on my Nightblade. And my Nightblade is one of the easiest classes to PvP on because I can dictate where and when the fight happens. I can reposition from stealth. I have nuclear capabilities at my disposal, and my class and my healing scales off my weapon and spell damage. So I lean into weapon and spell damage so I can kill people faster and heal myself harder. Like, so, which is another topic that we definitely need to discuss. Nightblade for me is super fun, not stressful whatsoever right now. I'm not trying to steer a bunch of people to Nightblade. Please don't do that. But I want you to play the way you want, right? Play the way you want, which class you want and whatever. But I think that this Rubik's Cube is harder to solve when you have so many different voices talking about so many different things and nobody agreeing with each other. As the example, as I don't think that the Battle Spirit passive should be ramped up or used in that way. As a matter of fact, I need more damage. And that thought process, or we need more damage. Whenever you say we or our, you're taking claim to that class and that play style. Those individuals should not be responsible for balancing a class. When they say we or our spec bow hits for, they're taking claim to this is my class, right? And don't you dare nerf my class. That's probably not someone you should ask to, hey, how should we best balance your class? you
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh yeah.
um, and you should also not take. I'm not bitter about being nuked in a millisecond from a Nightblade. I'm not bitter at the Nightblade because they're doing exactly what they were built to do or intended to do. I'm bitter that we are 4 years later and there's still no balance and there's still no counterplay. And that I was showing Jason last night the power. There is no power creep, it is an absolute power spike. My highest weapon damage, or one of my higher weapon damage play characters from just a year ago, was like 6,200, and he'd spike
Yeah.
up to 7K or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm literally playing last night, and I showed him a screenshot where I have 11K weapon and spell damage on a build. 11K weapon and spell damage. Like,
That's without crit too, isn't it?
yeah, well, yeah, your critical damage that you're going to do is going to scale off of your weapon and spell damage. So, your tool tips are going to be really high with 11K weapon and spell damage, and therefore your crits are going to be just stupid. But that's where we're at with the game. It's because we have all these different voices and no one can agree on what the answer is because everyone wants more power. Everyone wants more power. And the real reality of it is you don't need more power. Those individuals, the outliers that are abusing the failed math, right? It's not multiplicative, it's additive, and they didn't add caps and this, that, and the other. You feel like you need more power because there are individuals that you can't kill, and you should be able to kill all the people. And so, um, what I would like is everyone to agree that if you utilize Battle Spirit passive to eliminate all of our pain points, to cap all of our pain points. I don't want to take the 80 or 90% damage mitigation person's mitigations away completely. I want their mitigations to be capped to where they can't abuse them and they still have to work to stay alive, right?
And they should. You should have to work to kill and work to stay alive on both fronts, and that's where that balance comes into play. And I think to talk to the point that you just made up, not make up, that you were just talking to, is that unity, right? Like as a
Yeah.
unified voice from the PvP community, that needs to be listened to. When it's a fractured voice of a small percentage of a player base, and there's such dissension and so many different voices, it's hard to hear the noise. But if
Yeah.
a lot of people, the majority, can unify behind a solution and speak to it intelligently and collectively, there's power there.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, you know, I've recognized this based off my community post yesterday. Other people recognize that they're outliers or people that are walking around with massive mitigations and it just shouldn't happen, right? It's a thing in the game, and because they can't kill those people, or there's like 7 people trying to kill this one person and then they turn and nuke someone down, like they feel that, well, we need more power. No, that person needs to be mitigated.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Oh
right.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
and so I want to read two different posts that I found from a year ago. This is on Reddit, and the first individual's runs with Mead, and he says, before all the get quote unquote get good scrub replies start, let me just say I consider myself a decent PvP player. I have mained a DK for years. He is a 5-star with 50k plus kills. I have emped multiple times. I have 12 tunes, so I have PvP'd on all of them, not so much recently since the hybridization crap that made half of them useless. So I know what I'm doing somewhat, lol. I just think there should be a mitigation cap with Battle Spirit, as I know some players who get upwards of 70 to 80% mitigation at lower health, if you can even get their health that low. It's PvP. We are all meant to die, so what's the point in going to PvP with the only goal of being not to die when you trade all your damage just for sustain and mitigation? I get what PvP tanks are for, being res bots and siege burners, and that's fine. But the majority of them do nothing but tower hump and troll, and I feel that does nothing but discourage others from playing PvP. Then we are left with nothing but tanky troll tower humpers, which isn't fun for anyone. I'm open to input and roast me if you like, but I think a flat mitigation cap of 30% would resolve this issue. It would make it where 90% of the PvPers are not running around as a stage 3 vampire either. It's just hella annoying getting these turds to 10% health and hit them with an execute to see that their health doesn't move at all. LOL. And sure, I could do what most do and disengage and go find some poor squishy to beat up on, but eventually all the squishies will be gone. Thoughts on this? My thoughts on this is I love this.
Oh yeah.
This is a
He's
veteran.
articulate. He's
Yeah, yeah. This is a veteran PvPer that's talking about his pain point, and he's proposing an option, right? Um, and I love that his perspective is this is PvP. We're all meant to die. Yes, everyone dies in PvP. Yes, I go 34-0 in a battleground, and I put these videos up. But you didn't see the 4 other videos where I'm build testing, and I go into a battleground and I go 4-5, and I'm like, that ain't the build. Jeez, that was bad. You know what I mean? Like that build just does not work, does not sustain, does not whatever. And you don't see those things, but you see the sweet spots when I find the build and I find the play style, and I'm like, ooh, this is it. I want to show that, right? Um, so I love this guy's perspective on this and opening himself up to comments and whatever. Let me fast forward here to someone that replied to him, and we'll discuss this here. He said, "ESO. This post is by ESO Talk. You were right that Zoss should definitely be using Battle Spirit with caps. In my opinion, in PvP, the self healing is the main reason for unkillable trolls because, as you said, it's not the siege burners or the frontliners that is a problem. It's the tower humpers and the 1vxers who can have 5 heals running when they get into trouble, then turn around and kill someone in 3 seconds. One of the biggest contributors to this is scaling heal skills off of weapon and spell damage stat. Excuse me. They if they scaled healing just like shielding scaled based off of max mag, max stam with cap based on health stats. Logically, they could even reduce healing based on higher weapon and spell damage, as people keep saying you should be one or the other, but not both. And if that doesn't reduce the healing enough, make it so you can only have one self heal per second and also allow one external heal per second from a healer or even a set. That would fix the issue permanently. Then Zoss can scale damage accordingly. I'd like to come to back to all this too. But I love your caps in Battle Spirit idea. I've been suggesting that for years. They could actually fix overland difficulty, dungeons, beginner casual PvP, and elite PvP, etc., just by using the appropriate caps in all instanced content. The key is to scale down to content level you want, for instance. For instance, in Overland, if they capped weapon and spell damage at 4K, crit chance at 10k, etc., it would be instantly become more challenging. Instead, the stupid no CP, no proc, they should have a real beginner casual PvP zone, no CP, and cap weapon and spell damage 5k, crit chance at 25k, and take out abilities, no invasion, no streak, no corrosive, no miss. This way, beginners and casuals have a place to play and learn without being dominated and quitting. And that lower the stat will discourage the sweat lords from abusing the beginners. And so let's go back to this first paragraph here real quick. They're talking about currently with hybridization, which was implemented a year or two ago, whatever. Um, your your weapon and spell damage, your healing is scaled off of your weapon and spell damage, or the weapon and spell damage of the individual that's healing you. Okay, and that's a problem. It's a problem. I keep saying Nightblade because I've just been playing my Hawkeye, and um, I just know how powerful it is. Out of all the
Yeah.
classes and all the play styles, Hawkeye, my Nightblade, is absolutely just dominating and the easiest to play. It's zero stress for me to play him. Nuclear capabilities, very high heals, love it. Um, they shouldn't scale my ability to heal myself off my weapon and spell damage. That's a problem, because as a Nightblade, I just lean into weapon and spell damage because people can't see me and I'm going to be hitting people from stealth. Therefore, I don't need mitigations. I don't need other things that other classes need, right? I just lean into weapon and spell damage, have all the healing I need and all the damage I need.
Right.
And people will say, well, Nightblades are high risk, high reward. No, bro, they're not risk at all. They're just high reward. They're not high risk at all. I can disengage where and when I want, using shadowy disguise or shadow image, and I can just teleport over here, dodge roll over here, disappear. And yeah, they use their detect bots. Then I stun them, and I just dodge roll out and use speed to disengage. Like, there's so many ways to handle somebody with a detect bot. It's not the end of the world, and my heals usually are enough to overdo their damage that that person sees me, but they can't put enough damage into me to offset my heals. So what we proposed 4 years ago, and here we are, and this isn't a thing still. And what they're proposing just a year ago is that your heals or heals in PvP Battle Spirit passive should scale off of max stat, because it's really hard to put a max weapon damage and a max stat build together. Because if most of the armor sets that lean into damage don't have max stat as a 2, 3, and 4 piece bonus, and the 5 piece is usually the weapon and spell damage, they're leaning into the damage. That's how you get such high damage numbers. That's why you have Nightblades that can run double damage sets, because here's all the healing, here's all the killy, damage. Congratulations. But if you made it to where their heals were based off of max stat, if they're running 2 damage sets on them, they're not going to have max stat. It'll be very hard to have max stat. And so now their heals will suffer from it. That's where high risk, high reward exists, not where the game's currently at. And so, and anyone that disagrees with me, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're
Or
wrong.
articulate your reasoning and why why you're wrong in the comments, and let's talk about it. Let's talk through it. Let's get some unity developed where we
Yeah.
can solve these problems and get more people engaged in the PvP experience and have more
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Here's the thing too, where we're at currently, and I've this isn't fake news. This isn't made up. There are Nightblades that you can fight in Imperial City. Imperial City districts is some of the best small scale PvPers in all of ESO. I'm not saying they're not out in Cyrodiil. The problem with Cyrodiil is it has a higher population, and which dilutes the. But if you want to have some of the most sweaty fights with people that are running the most meta whatever, you go to the districts, because you will find those people there. But there are people that will stand flat-footed and you can full parse on them and you won't make a dent because of their healing, the healing situation right now, right? They're just, and they will turn around and hit one button and you will disappear.
That's not fun. That's not skill. That's not
That's,
skill at all.
yeah, it's skill in regards to they made it happen. Like they have the hots going, they have the whatever, they figured it out. You know, their
I
theory
wouldn't call that
crafting.
skill, figuring something out and listening to somebody else's advice. I don't call that skill. I think that's
Yeah,
intelligence, but I don't think it's skill.
right. Yeah, yeah. You know, yeah, their buddy says, dude, this thing's unkillable and all you have to do is this. And then they do it and they're like, yeah, that's unkillable. And then they go around and have the best day ever, you know, the best year ever until things are fixed. So healing in ESO needs to scale off max stat for sure. And because that puts damage in a weird spot. If you lean into damage, then you're going to have less self heals. And then what's going to happen is there's going to be somebody says, well, now we'll see more bot healers, which, you know, more people will be dedicated healers running around with their team and running stat based builds just so their team has heals. Hey, that's fine.
That's
As
great.
long,
And then you
yeah,
got only one off heal in addition to your self heal.
yes, that's so the next part of it is, and we talked about this 4 years ago, it's heal stacking and cross healing, these two different things. So let's talk about what heal stacking is. Heal stacking is this. I'm going to take one heal in the game. Let's say it's rapid regen. Okay. If I cast rapid regen on myself, you'll see, we're just going to make up numbers here, but if I cast, just to point out the problem, if I cast rapid regen on myself, you'll see 1500 health ticking on the side of my character, right? Rapid regen in PvP is doing 1500 per second or every 2 seconds, whatever. We'll say it's every second just for the sake of math or whatever. Now let's say Jason and I are both running together and we're both running rapid regen and I hit it and he hits it. So I just went from 1500 health every second to now 3k health every second. And let's say we add Kyle or my buddy Rotten to the group, right? And Rotten hits his rapid regen. So all three of us are running rapid regen. And so now instead of, you know, 1500, just me healing myself and Jason and I healing ourselves, and we got 3k. Now we've got 4500 coming in every second. And there becomes a tipping point when that group becomes 4 or 5, 6, or the maximum group size is 12 people, right? There becomes a tipping point where the amount of damage that you can do will never exceed the amount of hots or heals over time that person, because we're allowing that person to stack heals, stack the same heal.
That's broken.
So that's broken. So what I propose within the battle spirit passive is that you cannot have two of the same named heal on your player character, which means, yes, I can put rapid regen on myself. Jason casts rapid regen. Now, Jason's rapid regen, we can make it to where his is blocked out for me altogether because I already have that going. Or you can make it that his trumps mine, you know,
It's stronger, right?
yeah, like if his is stronger, it trumps mine, and now it starts the timer again. But I can never have more than one rapid regen on me at any given time. You have these abilities with the name of the ability. Use the name of the ability against the abilities to prevent the stacking of them, right?
And
And
only in PvP because of the.
yeah. Now the other thing, okay, so that's heal stacking. And here's the other thing too about heal stacking, just to even a little bit further deep dive into that. Heal stacking is a problem because of what I just said, but that was one ability. Imagine if I added a second ability to the equation and Jason had the same ability and Rotten had the same ability and Kyle had the same ability, right? Now all of a sudden it gets completely like, the only way you kill that group is to have a bomb set up that pulls everyone in and triggers this massive explosion, and you global their health. Like that's how you. And because of all of this, is why you see ball groups. Because if that's the only way they can die, is if they're globaled, and then they just need to make sure that they keep moving and never get caught and never globaled and never get an individual peeled off. I'm not against ball groups, by the way. I'm against mindless PvP, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, but you'll get the massive groups. Those groups, by the way, I've run with ball groups, and the level of strategy. We're going to keep moving here and stay on crown and keep these abilities going and whatever. Those groups will kill tons and tons of people because they're coordinating ult dumps and they're doing all this and stuff. But ball groups are the biggest complaint by pretty much the majority of ESO PVP, and it's because heal stacking is a thing. Use Battle Spirit passive to get rid of heal stacking and watch what happens. These immortal ball groups become killable, and it doesn't need to be with it doesn't need to be with a global, their health play. And so that's one thing, okay? The second thing is called cross healing. And cross healing is this. Let's say Jason and I are PvPing together, but we're not in the same group together. I'm running around in Cyrodiil, and then Jason goes, "Oh, there's a guy on my faction," and he runs along with me. We don't take the time to group up or whatever, but let's say someone jumps on me and starts fighting me, and I hit my rapid regen. And then Jason's like, "Oh, my buddy in arms, because if my buddy dies, then I'm what's for dinner." Then they're going to start fighting me. So he throws his rapid regen up too, and that regen, even though we're not in a group together, starts healing me. And that shouldn't be a thing. You should not be able to heal people outside of your group. And I know that that is counterintuitive to a battleground or battlefield scenario, right? You're out on the field, you want to be the hero, you see this guy taking an immense beating, and you want to save him and be the hero or whatever. That's cool, but it's the problem. It's the problem with PvP. I shouldn't be able to save him. If Kyle running from those 5 people wanted to be saved, he would have been in my group. He wouldn't be out here solo, which
Or
comes.
you could even
Oh,
take you could even segregate the battle spirit and say in this BG or in this type of BG allow that type of interaction, and then in others not allow that for those that enjoy the type of gameplay. Like you can,
yeah,
what you're proposing is doesn't necessarily have to be blanket across all PvP. Just like you're not suggesting blanket nerfs against every single class and player. It's targeted to enable more skill and more fun and to get more people
yes,
engaged. And so if you want
yes,
to have particular, serial, you can do that, but then someplace else you can't, you could do that through the tooltip. You could do that through the battle spirit, and then you could still have those people that enjoy that type of activity continue to do so, and then you can still gain a wider following because it's more accessible, and PvP becomes a better experience for the majority of people.
yeah. So, what we've discussed so far, let's do a snapshot of that and just freeze it for a second, too. If you only do one and not the other, you're going to have imbalance. If we only address healing and we make it to where cross healing can't happen, so I can't heal you unless you're in a group, and you can't heal me unless we're in a group, and we change it to where our heals are based off of cat or
Stats.
max stats, yeah, max mag or max stam, and we make it to where you can't heal stack, right? That drastically affects healing capabilities in PvP. And if we only change that, we'll notice an impact immediately
Oh yeah.
because groups are dying, people are dying, and they're like, holy crap, this is hard, right? Because of the power spike that we talked about, and just even the last year, let alone the last 4 years or since hybridization or whatever, we will have, as I've said already, nuclear capabilities on classes because those classes have had to try and kill 70 and 80% damage mitigation people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got a bunch of people, and healing in the game is just different. We're not stacking, we're not cross healing, and healing's based off of max stat, and it's hard to swing both max damage and max stat. And so it puts, theory crafting wise, puts you in a weird spot where you have to decide, you know, how much damage do I need to put people away, but yet how much max stat do I need to also make myself durable if I'm trying to fight outnumbered or 1vx.
Or do I
One,
play a class that I can only play in a group environment because of the way
right.
that and that opens up more possibilities.
100%. 100%. And one of the biggest complaints in ESO too, across the board with most of the community is the 1vxer. The 1vxer is like this dirty word, right? Your PvE community, there's people that don't touch their toes in PvP because there's 1vxers out there. And I'm not trying to be in someone's clip or they're unkillable or they're this and they're that. And PvP is tainted because of that. Do you know the amount of pressure and the difficulty it is right now to 1vx because of nuclear capabilities? But it's hard to 1vx right now in the game. Do you know how hard it would be to 1vx once heal stacking or once whatever was added? Cross healing, sometimes they're running alongside somebody and they're not necessarily in the group because it looks better for their clip. There's all kinds of things that people do, but um, if we were to change their builds to where they can't have nuclear capabilities at their fingertips and they have to lean into it to survive being hit on by 6, 10, 12 people, it just changes everything. It changes it. um, so I propose that healing be addressed, and I proposed this 4 years ago. This pill, if we were to make these changes, is not going to be easy to swallow right now and maybe for the next year. The reason being is nobody wants to be quote unquote nerfed. Nobody wants to have something taken away from them. And if we're taking away your 70 or 80 or 90% damage mitigation, or we're taking away your global someone's health burst potential, or we're taking away whatever it is, these pain points that we need to address to balance the game, it's going to be hard right here and right now. But if you were to fast forward 4 years from now, it would be the norm for everybody. And we would be in a lot more healthy PvP environment.
In a larger
So,
PvP environment,
a
and you would
larger PvP environment.
it,
Don't you want a target rich environment to kill people?
make it more engaging for the casual, for the PvE player, and not always knee-jerk react to some new capability by having a damage mitigation capability that far exceeds what it's intended or should be. You target various aspects of the game, various classes, various abilities. Implement the change that you said via the battle spirit, and you can have multiple battle spirits running via different environments depending upon the type of balancing that you wanted to implement. It wouldn't be that hard to do. They could turn off the current one and implement something new because the code is spaghetti. But overall, it would be a more unifying building experience. Will you still have people that are smurfing or doing whatever, or just ganking and doing stuff? Yeah, you're gonna have those guys. But I think on the whole, it would make the game that much better and that much more playable and appealing to new players in generality.
Yeah. Here's kind of a thing that makes this balancing very difficult. ZOS implemented these armor sets called Proc sets, and they're basically once you meet a condition, they do free damage, free healing, right? And some of them are not balanced whatsoever. And so when you put them in a PvP environment, their damage is off the charts. As an example, I can run whatever class it is. You can pick any class. I'm generalizing here, but I can run any class and I can run a stat based build and I can go 20-0 or 20-1 in a battleground, whatever, and do okay. And my total damage for the battleground would be like 1,000,000. I could put on 2 or 3 proc sets on that same character, and I could go 34-0 or 34-1 or whatever, and I would do 2 or 3 or 6 million damage because all the damage that the proc sets are doing. So the problem there becomes if you address healing the way that we're talking, because healing's the problem that adds to the immense tankiness of players. Let's look at that for a second. When I'm training new PvPers, we talk about there's a couple different things going on and how people are surviving and mitigating damage. Sometimes they're block casting their abilities, and block casting means I can hold block and my block never drops while I'm throwing out heals. So I'm mitigating 70% of all incoming damage while also executing the ability. So once you learn what abilities that you have are block cast capable, you can mitigate damage and also execute abilities, okay? There's so many different ways to mitigate damage in the game. Another sneaky way to mitigate damage isn't actually mitigating damage, it's just out healing the damage. And so it gives the impression that they're unkillable and you're not making any leeway against them. And it's because they have so much healing coming in, right? And so you'll take a swing on them and do virtually nothing. You'll be like, wow, that's a tanky boy. No, that might not be a tanky boy. That might be a healy boy, right? They have
Yeah.
so much health healing coming in that you're just not going to make leeway. So addressing the healing will 100% make people feel like if we were to add mitigation caps and address the healing the way we talk, no cross healing, no heal stacking, and heals based off max stat, we would live in a different world for sure. But then we would have a drastic problem because we still have nuclear capabilities with the proc sets, right? And one of those voices, when we talk about all the different voices complaining to one another, is I'm I'm gonna, you know, kind of say whatever it is. It's not verbatim exactly what they said, but don't you dare take my proc sets away. It's fun in PvP. Proc sets, I have more fun playing with proc sets. I get that. You have more fun with these unique effects and the ability to throw this onto your character and synergize it with your abilities and get this more damage and whatever. But at some point, we're going to have to look at the scaling of the proc sets and the amount of damage that they do, especially if we're addressing healing. Everyone is killable now. There's nobody over X cap of mitigation, and healing has been addressed, but everyone has nuclear capabilities. And I think the time to kill will be really short, right? Because, and that's, you know, it wouldn't address the problem. And
Right.
so to have the reason I tell new PvPers to go to low BBGs to learn the ins and outs of maintaining your buffs and also doing damage to people and managing your CC timetable or windows, you know, your hard stuns and your soft stuns, your immobilization slows and roots. You can slow or you can immobilize somebody or root them every 4 seconds, and then you can stun them every 7 seconds. And so, which is another topic as well. But just stunning someone every 7 seconds and immobilizing them every 4 seconds makes them have to dodge roll and or break free, burning their resources. And there's you can kill people outright, like deplete their health to zero, or you can make it a resource fight to where they just don't have the will to continue to fight. And that's how you kill some people. They do not manage the resources well. And so if I'm fighting somebody that I can tell is not channeling heavy attacks or not getting their not managing their resources, unless they have a build that has just the most ridiculous regens, you know, resource recoveries in the world, I'll get this person because they're not their cadence of fighting is not set up properly for an extended fight. So I change it from I'm going to try and take a poke at them and burst them down to we're just going to make this a long drawn out fight and I'll get them that way. And so all of this, you know, to be said, maybe it's time to consider PvP armor sets like World of Warcraft does. Um, you know, only crafted gear. And this is something Jason and I were talking about, and a lot of other PvPers and I've been talking about heavily over the last couple of weeks, is maybe we just make it to where it's crafted gear only. And a lot of people will be really mad about that because we're taking something away from them, or all the time they spent farming dungeons for this gear and this, that, and the other. I get it. But from in 2 years from now, it won't matter how mad you were because PvP will be thriving, you
Yeah.
know, and that's what matters to me most is
Absolutely.
PvP's thriving. And so I love PvE too. So like I'm having a lot of fun in PvE because I get to use all those sets, and I currently can use them in PvP too. So, but anyways, I
By changing
think
it to a crafting situation, you're opening the door though for a transfer of money because the PvEers can craft that gear, and then it gives them an avenue to explore the PvP world because they can craft that gear and then enter into PvP at maybe a higher level than they would just, bare bones, just stepping into it. Again, it makes it more accessible.
yeah, you'll bring the PvPers out of PvP to keep working on their crafting to get their crafting up so they can make their PvP gear.
Or those that
And
don't want to can rely on somebody that does, and then the
yes,
transfer of wealth.
yeah, 100%. Also, if PvP armor was relegated to crafted gear only, it gets infinitely easier to balance PvP to make
Oh
sure
yeah.
there's not something that's implemented in the game that's broken, you know. Um, and so now, if you just set your beliefs aside or your butthurtness, your mad, set being mad aside and just think about it for a second. You'll have all this nuclear capabilities taken away from you, and all the time, yes, set all of it aside, and just look at the health of PvP. We, if we're just using craftable sets that are balanced properly, we're going to have some really good fights. Nightblade should be still able to global people play their role, the sneaky in and out. It's very hard to fight a skilled Nightblade, and those Nightblades. Here's the thing. Right now in ESO, people aren't fighting Nightblades. Nightblades are just doing bing, bang, boom, dead, and there was no fight.
Yeah.
There was no fight. There was no risk. And people say it's a high risk, high reward. No, bro, it's not. Like, make it a fight. You have the capabilities to chunk their health to half health or three quarters and they survive, but can they recover from it? Or do you still get the kill? Because you just hit them from stealth. That's your play style. You hit them
Yeah.
from stealth and almost killed them. They deserve counterplay um, for healthy PvP. That's just where I'm at on it. And I play a Nightblade. It's a dopamine. It feels amazing when you global somebody, but flip the role and it didn't make them any better at PvP. And there's going to be people. I had a gentleman or someone. I had someone post on my community tab yesterday or the day before, and they're like, it's your failed gameplay that led to your death, and it's like you're still avoiding the question. I understand why I died because I am truly running a high risk, high reward build,
Right.
and I ran into somebody with nuclear capabilities and I got nuked, but it brings the question, why do they have the ability to nuke people, and it shouldn't be for the outliers, the 70 and 80% mitigation people running around, right? And so I am running a high risk, high reward, and when I run into that person, I'm not winning those fights because you know there is no risk on their side. So
And I think that's healthy. Is all these proposals, all these changes. I think the underlining tone of this video of this conversation is that the pill is hard to swallow. It might be a horse pill for a lot of people today, but tomorrow, a year, 4 years down the road, it's just going to be such a better environment. And so I would encourage everybody to comment and to unify behind creating a solution. If not this one, then let's hear out your solution that solves these problems. Come up with something. If you already have something, share it with the community, and let's unify behind that, and let's make the game better. Let's encourage more play, more skill, more engagement, more fights, and have more fun doing it.
yeah, yeah. um I take guilds. I train PvP guilds or PvE guilds. I train full guilds, and they put groups of people together that want to learn how to PvP. I'll take them into a PvP environment like Imperial City or whatever, and we'll run around as a group and we talk about group movement, where you should be positioned at, what you should be doing when we engage a fight, how to fight in extended fights, like all this different stuff is conversations that we're talking about, the strategy and methodology to fighting, right? And we're adding a rhyme or reason to it all. And there's these small scalers that run around solo or duo in the districts, which we were talking about earlier, and they're some of the most skilled. And there's one particular one who I haven't seen in a while. They probably quit the game because of their frustration. But every time I go up there, they would message me and say, "You're a Zerger now," or "You're a ball grouper," or "You're this." And they were just very elitist, toxic, right? And the thing is, I'm trying to bring people into PvP. I'm trying to show them the love of PvP to increase. I'm trying to add fish to the pond. He should never be mad at that. I'm trying to
Right.
increase, make it a more target rich environment. You know, he's all, that alpha predator fish is always going to be out there. Here's more fish. And some of these fish end up really enjoying PvP and they become sharks themselves. And I think that's awesome, you know, but I'm trying to bring more people to PvP and you're mad because I'm running a training session trying to teach them the ins and outs of running in a small group. And then I'm also telling them the benefits of practicing dueling and what a good dueling partner would look like. And they should get good on a one-on-one basis. You know, they should be queuing for battlegrounds solo and, um, you know, how they should be managing their time if they do that. Like if you're a healer, Jason, it's hard for you to solo queue for battlegrounds because you'll get into a battleground paired with three other random people and you're not in comms with them and you're just like, well, hopefully, you know, I'm going to keep someone alive. Hopefully you do what you're supposed to do. And
Right.
that's really hard for a healer, but we talk about that. What's your role as a healer and how to queue? Or if you're one of these tanks, you know, and you're trying to play the objectives or whatever. And so we talk about every possible way to play the way you want, and let's optimize it to be good. And I want these people to eventually go out and run on their own and have these really fun, engaging fights, and see that they can do it, you know, once they, because there's a nuance to PvP, like skilled PvP, and that's maintaining your buffs and maintaining your heals and maintaining your CCs, and then also finding time to damage them and recover from that damage. Like this should be a dance, you know. And
I
when it's
like
a
that.
dance, it's very engaging. So that's my thought process on it. I posted this comment yesterday, and I got some pretty negative things, and it really made me realize that that's the root of the problem right there. Is everyone has a different voice to answer the problem, or they're not posing an answer to it, proposing an answer to it whatsoever. They're just bashing you, you know, with no
Sure.
answer to it because they're having the greatest time right now. You know, they're one of the outliers that are
The
enjoying
problem.
the problem. Yes, 100%. And so then it becomes a real question of is this individual somebody that we should trust with the balancing of their class, or you know, the game as a whole, or PvP as a whole? You know, probably not,
Probably
because
not.
they're always going to lean towards, you know, I need nuclear capabilities. So
I think TG. In closing, let's talk about the roadmap. Let's talk about the 2024 roadmap of this upcoming announcement.
yeah, can you read that? I actually download. Oh wait, let me pull that up real
It's just
quick.
update 44, new
Yep.
PvP related feature.
Yeah, update 41. So 2024 content roadmap, update 41 with dungeon, DLC, game pack, and quality of life improvements. Okay, with update 41. Then we had Gold Road, which was the new chapter, and Westfield Zone and scribing system. So they just added new abilities to the game. Some are, from what I hear, I haven't experienced the broken ones that hit so hard. My experience with the scribing abilities is they're all mid. Like they do bring something cool to the game and they bring something different to the game, and those classes that are missing that whatever it is, there's probably something in scribing that will fill that gap. I wish there were some executes within the scribing, I would say, would be my only. And with the shield throw with Steve Rogers, I can either choose between a shield throw that taunts a single target, or but what I would really like is that I could throw the shield, it bounces between multiple enemies and taunts them. So they have some of their affixes and stuff like that in different spots that they should be. Um, but for the most part, I think it adds great change to the game, right? I haven't experienced anything that's overpowered. I did see some people comment and say that there are some damage mitigation anytime you add more damage mitigation into abilities, because it's not multiplicative, it's additive, and they don't do the math right, it's just
Right.
adding to the problem. But whatever. Update 43, new housing related feature, quality of life improvements, and bug fixes. And but quality of life improvements is going to show up because they have a plan. I don't know what that is yet. I haven't seen what that is, and to be honest, I haven't been looking at the patch notes as close as it's easier for me to not look close at the patch notes. As a side note, when I look closely at them and I don't like changes that I see, then it puts me in a different mindset with the game. I would rather the currently things just happen in the game, and then I just need to Rubik's Cube figure it out. We're going to
Hmm.
try and make it work. But bug fixes, you for sure would see that on there in update 43, because that's going to be addressing the scribing problems that will arise for sure, right? So you'll see bug fixes there. And then update 44 was the one that I was most interested in, because it's update 44 and it says 2 new companions. That's cool. Companions are actually fun. I just got my first companion 2 weeks ago, and I've been PvEing more, and so I have fun with that. But new PvP related feature. The new PvP related feature has me worried.
Yeah.
It has me worried because we don't have good balancing in the game. So the related feature is that balancing, is that things that we're talking about right now, the that we're getting rid we're adding caps with battle spirit, or we're adding is this like hopium, right? Is or are they going to say like this, somebody's going to say, well, if it's knowing Zos, it's going to be we're adding a new deck to the card game, because when they first announced the Tales of Tribute card game, they said we have a new PvP. It was in the PvP announcements.
Right.
It's a card game, and it's in the PvP announcement. And of course, your entire PvP community is like, yes, PvP something. And then it's a card game, and they're like, really?
Really.
Really? So I'm hoping it's not something along those lines. I've been joking, and on my live streams, I've been joking with it being it's going to be companion duels. You'll be able to have your companions fight, and then you'll sit back and watch, and whatever abilities you assigned your companion or gear, will dictate whether they win the duel or not. It's going to be that, right? In my opinion, that's not PvP. It's my companion. It's PVE versus PVE,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's my companion versus their companion, but in the most Zoss way, right? That would
Right.
be the announcement. That's somebody's going to say that. So we've been joking about that, but um, I think it would be cool if they add a ranked PvP situation. Right now they have ranks for Cyrodiil, right? And you can become Emperor and stuff like that. But specifically, we're talking about arenas. And I had talked to Epic Butt Kicker about this. I had talked to all the PvPers that I PvP with and talked to in Discord about it and voiced my concerns. But my concern is, if we're going to add a ranked system, we're adding a ranked system on top of a flawed system.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it still isn't addressing everything that we have already talked about in in
It's just
this
giving a new
video.
system to increase the problems.
It's giving a new system to really show to show that it's a problem, you know, even further. And so what's going to happen, because the the image that I posted on my community tab was, it's a healer with 3 Nightblades in the group, and they're just decimating everyone. Decimating everyone. They're going 30-0, every one of them on the team. They're destroying anyone and everyone. And I've taken I'm like build testing different classes and different play styles, and I'm going in there and I'm seeing that these guys are there. And it's like usually a friend saying, "Hey, do you want to queue for a battleground?" "Yeah, I'll go with you." And they're still learning. Like they're a new PvPer, and we get in a group with those guys. And I'm just like, and I tell them right off the bat, this is going to be rough. This is going to be really rough for you. It's going to be really rough for me, and I'm an experienced PvPer. Like these guys are just running the most meta broken everything, and they're abusing. They're not playing the objective. Everything is a death match to them, and as a matter of fact, they're abusing the objective to force people to deathmatch them. So if it's capture the relic, they're going and capturing the relic from each team, but not capturing it at their base. They're holding it, forcing the other two teams to come to them, and then they're just killing them. And so they're forcing everybody to deathmatch with them. And it's just the absolute worst experience ever, honestly. It's the worst experience ever. I'm a skilled PvPer. I like fights. Those are not fights. I'm
No.
literally getting nuked from three people all at once. Spec bowed to death, coordinated ult dumps right into the stun spec bow. Goodbye. Bing, bang, boom, dead. On to the next. And it's the absolute worst experience. And so um, the matchmaker rating system needs to be looked at, and I had talked about that as well. And I don't even know that there is a matchmaker rating system or an MMR or an ELO, whatever you want to call it, beyond your first 10 to 20 battlegrounds, and then you're just thrown in the pool. And there's going to be somebody that says the PvP community, Zoss might even say this, the PvP community is so small, it does not support breaking up into brackets based off of experience. It just simply doesn't. You would sit in a queue all day. And so half the voices in the cube of PvP world will say, well, I don't want to wait all day to do a battleground. So it is what it is. Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug, which is what I say, when I'm the bug, you know, but,
Yeah.
um, but most of the people that I'm training in PvP would, even though they're just trying to get their daily, the people that I'm training them because they're trying to get better at PvP. They want nothing to do with that experience. They want nothing to do with landing in a battleground with those people and getting destroyed. You know, they want nothing to do with that. That is not fun. It's not an atmosphere conducive of learning. It's just those people exploiting the heck out of the current state of the game and having the greatest time of their life, you know. And so, anyways, I think it would be cool if you were adding a ranked arena scenario, but only after all these other changes. So don't give me this big PvP announcement and it be something that's not addressing the biggest problems with PvP. That's my concern for update 44. So
And I think even if it is exactly what you don't want and it exasperates the problem and it extends, another arena, to have the problems that exist with PvP, at some point there are two paths ahead. Either 4 years and it's the same thing that you're dealing with right now, or there's some unity that occurs within the PvP community that expands the audience, that addresses these issues, that comes together, helps make these changes, and then that transition's hard because change is always hard. But then in 4 years, it's a healthy 3-4 times the size PvP community, and everybody's having fun.
yeah.
So,
Hey, let's talk about that real quick. The 4 years from now thing you just said. You know what someone's going to say? Who cares, bro? This is a 10-year-old game. They're gonna there's gonna be somebody that says that. This is a 10-year-old game, bro. They ain't doing that, or nobody cares, or they won't be able to get past the fact that this should have been done right off the jump, right? And they'll pose no positive. They'll bring nothing positive to the discussion, and they'll just say, these guys are clowns or these guys are idiots, and they should have done this 10 years ago. Period. Stop and stop sentence.
right.
And so there's going to be that maybe they should have done this a long time ago, but you have to think the dev team that's working on it now wasn't the dev team then, which rolls into the other issue that Jason and I were talking about, which is the spaghetti, right? Battle Spirit has been a part of PvP for the longest time from the jump, and that dev team is no longer here. If we don't know how that, like, we can't separate or work with Battle Spirit in the capacity that we should be able to. Everything that you're talking about sounds great. We just simply can't do that because the code is so spaghettified. Then what were you discussing? You posed something earlier that proposed
Yeah,
something.
well, you could eliminate those lines of code or apply a buff that would neutralize the battle spirit, and then apply another buff or in the same buff that would implement its own features. And so there are ways around it from a coding perspective that you could still make everything we're saying, and it wouldn't be too hard. Would it be work? Would it be a challenge? Would you have to pay attention and figure out what you have to balance and stuff? It would. It would require some work, but I think the reward is worth it,
Yeah.
because if you can have a healthy game that's 10 years old and extend its life another 10 years through listening to your player base and bringing in more people, that's money in your pocket. I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully, I feel like I bounced around from topic to topic. Hopefully, um, you could answer this because you don't play ESO. And that's why I thought this would be a good discussion to involve you. Is that if you can understand and follow and relate, you don't have a horse in the race. Am I right here?
I think
Or
you are. I don't have a horse in the race, and I think you're right. I've seen a lot of these changes take place in WoW over the last 10 years, and that's, coming up to be a 20-year game. So could ESO be 20 years? Absolutely.
right?
And, World of Warcraft went through a similar transition. Um,
Hmm.
it made it the better. There are a lot more people that engage in PvP. They've implemented a lot of changes with that system to make it more accessible and to make it more fun.
Yeah.
And ESO doesn't have to cookie cutter WoW, but the things that you're talking about just make sense.
Yeah. Hey, something else, dude? There is going to be somebody. I'm trying to head at all of the
Naysayers.
naysayers off at the pass or address them before. Like, I'm just thinking, and I've seen these comments before. Um, there's going to be somebody that says we don't want a watered down PvP. It's actually the opposite when you make these changes. Like, all you see is you took this away from me, you took this away from me, you took this away from me, and now PvP is watered down. Think about what happens when these things are balanced properly. There becomes real fights,
Yeah.
skill-based fights.
Yeah.
You to stay in a fight and to win a fight, you now have to understand and know your class and execute a fight. And so it does the opposite. We're not watering down PvP. We're making PvP more challenging while making it more accessible to the new players because they're not getting globaled right off the jump. Okay. So, and then what someone will say to that is, so what you're proposing is a tank meta. Everybody, no,
You still
people
have
will
the
still die.
uniqueness of the class, and people will still be able to. You may be a knight blade and be able to nuke somebody, but then if the healing's adjusted, another class could come in behind you and then eliminate you because
It's
you
over.
should be
Yeah.
dying. So
Yeah.
would you maintain your ability to nuke somebody? 100%. Could you nuke 4 people? Probably. But would you
Yeah.
go 30-0? Hopefully not.
That's going to be hard. That's going to be hard. That's what I'm proposing. Um, I'm not trying to water down PvP. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. By making these changes, you don't get the unkillable tanks. You don't get the uh, high risk, low
Low.
reward.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
no,
No.
wait,
No
high.
risk. High reward.
Yeah,
No risk.
exactly. You don't get those, right? Because we're adding caps and everything else. People are going to have to fight, and you're going to need to be good at fighting or you'll die, and sometimes you're just going to die anyways. I did everything I possibly could in that fight and I still died.
And that's
And
fun
that's
though.
probably how it should be,
That's how
right?
it should be. That's fun. That's fun. That was a good fight. And there will be those that get mad and get sweaty, but
Yeah.
everybody not sweaty but get toxic. But everybody's entitled to their opinion. Leave your opinion in the comments.
Yep.
We encourage this to be shared amongst the community and to open this discussion. And versus being the negative one and just posting a simple answer of, learn to play, bro, or whatever, like come up with a real solution. Add to the discussion. Add to the solution, and don't be part of the problem.
Yes, think about both sides of the coin. Don't tell me I need more power to kill the 70-80% mitigated people. You're only looking at it from your perspective, and that's one way to solve it. We give you even more nuclear capabilities, but what if we were to add caps to those people so they're not that? You don't need more nuclear capability, and you'll find out that you have too much nuclear capabilities as is, because you can kill 90% of the rest of the people. It's those guys that you're having a hard time killing.
Right.
So I want everybody to just think about this stuff and start discussing it, and then use the ESO forums. The real problem with posting stuff like this, controversial or whatever, in ESO forums is all the different voices arguing and fighting against one another. It would be so great if this video were shared by multiple content creators to start the discussion themselves, and we start getting people to a common way of thought.
100%.
Battle Spirit passive should be used,
100%.
and it should be used to avoid all these problems. So
awesome.
That's it. That's all I got. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, TJ. That was a really good discussion. I appreciate you helping me help out.
Yeah, high five. Grimsforge Gaming. If you need PvP training,